Welcome everybody to the second part of day 2 here at the Gold Team League in China, and it's a big occasion because it is the entrance of VK, Home of Lion, our world champion at the moment. We're not going to see her playing today, although obviously we get a view of her in the opening video. Those opening videos are something you'll hear me talk about a lot because I think they are spectacular. But we are going to see the first sighting of XHX, whose name I'm going to get wrong at some point because with an XC and an XHX, things cannot end well for me on this one. But this player has a lot going for him. I've heard good things, and from Benich, my friend from Twitter who helps me out significantly on some of these broadcasts, this is a player that if he was in the Western system would be travelling to a lot of Masters Tours and the old tour stops, that sort of thing. Loves to play Hearthstone and is an exciting prospect, as are all of VK. You may notice also from that intro video how young a team this is, and VK Club is a pretty new esports team in general, and they are expected to do really well here despite the fact that outside of Lion their names aren't necessarily household names. We saw XC earlier yesterday playing against Yu Yi, and he won that pretty convincingly 3-1 with a Demon Hunter sweep through. So let's see how he gets on today. Opening up with the Mage, it's his second appearances of the week. You can actually see the 1-0, which is going to help me out, next to the IG logo there. And he has started off with the Mage, taking on the Druid. Can the Mage manage to get rid of several waves of Glowfly swarms before succumbing? Run the Druid out of cards, or will the Druid just be able to get out that board, back it up, and win the game? If you hear some clicking through, that will be me looking to see how many Soul of the Forests are in this deck. That's kind of a huge factor. So there is one Soul of the Jungle. I love the translations. And that might be the middle ground. I think that the feeling is that 2 makes it quite easy and 0 makes it quite hard, and 1, you wait and see how this turns out. But this, again, don't think that the nerfs really matter much in this particular matchup, but just letting you know once more that this was a pre-nerf time. So preemptively buffing the minions there to get around a potential coin into Blizzard. Lots of damage ready to go, and if one wave of these connects, the game kind of gets close to ending, obviously. So the Doomsayer in hand obviously prompts you to look for ways to freeze, but there don't seem to be many available there. You have to look for another option to deal with this, and what would Zephyrus even find you? You've got Zephyrus Brawl at some point in the future. But it's not a very Zephyrusable board right now. Picks up a Cone of Cold. That might be a huge deal. Rolling Thunder, I guess, also works. It does allow XHX to stay on board to some degree, though. That's definitely not ideal. And this may tempt him to just go for it with the second swarm. Quite often you test the water with the first swarm and then try and generate a scenario for the second one where you get to get your Soul of the Forest down very quickly. But he's just seen that very insufficient looking answer. Tell XHX is new from the nervousness on camera. It's definitely a big deal, and I've mentioned it already a couple of times in other casts. Playing for a team is even harder than playing for yourself. The mistakes feel magnified. He's not rushing this decision. With that Cone of Cold in hand, things may not end up well for him should he go for this, but I think this is the right call. I think this is a brave call, but I think it's the right call. You have seen XC unable to do things correctly. This is, of course, Kael'thas that was nerfed, so yeah, that is a huge difference. It's very hard to reconstruct in your head nerfs after the event. Like, I can remember obviously some of them, but you get on with the new meta and so on. Some stick with you forever. Things like Unleash. Been nerfed and buffed, like changed about 3 times, I believe. Alright, XC, you need to deal with this. Kael'thas is just going to be a huge problem otherwise. Only, I believe, 1 Mount Seller in this deck. And 1 Kael'thas. To keep my wits about me on the builds again. Casting a little bit after the time. But we really want you to be able to see all of the ways to the World Championships. Alright, there goes the Zephyrus Brawl. And it's going to be all about whether Kael'thas can do anything exceptional or not. With no overflow, good chance there's not. Oh, I thought Zephyrus was going to survive there, but the big one survives. That's something. Mount Seller is drawn. That is also useful. And again, XHX knows to go for this. The last 2 turns have been... like, whenever you see Zephyrus used up, that's it. They're out of stuff. That's kind of what Zephyrus says. It's almost always the last thing used in these situations. You want to save it as your emergency play, and the emergency has been played. So I think we'll see Mount Seller. Oh, it's awkward. I see destruction of his own minions. Yeah, this is complicated. That is a Bog Beam. So he's not going to actually generate mounts by blowing up his own board, much as he'd probably want to do things. This is the solution. Force your opponent to play minions and then use the cards to their maximum effect, the Wrath and the Bog Beam, to get some mounts. The Kael'thas, if left unchecked, will be great, but really you're trying to provoke a response here. Alright, Fungal Fortunes. Might be a case of just play that and see where you're at. You've drawn the 2 minions in the deck. This is a very minion light version. No, oh, there's 1 Ysera, but no other crazy dragons going on. I haven't reached the point yet where Onyxias or that sort of stuff started to happen. Ysera was always popular with the APAC players, but it took a little while to catch on across the other regions in Europe and Americas. Oh my. Well, the 0 mana is going to be a bit sad, but the mounts are huge here. There's a great chance of getting a Diving Griffin as well from 4 attempts at a Mount Seller. Ironically, I've worked that maths out and have it in a file that I haven't got open for the other Grandmaster casts. But plenty on the board to sort it out anyway. And once again, as it's been the case since about turn 5 onwards, XC is facing down a rapid demise, and as has also been the case from turn 4 onwards, finding ways to deal with it. Reno, though, is likely to leave up the Mount Seller and Kael'thas. Turns out that when there's 20 health on the board and your Reno does 10, Reno isn't as much fun anymore, which makes me happy. Nothing against IG at all, just we're going to have some fun is one of the most voice lines to me. It makes me slightly irritated every single time I hear it. Good positioning rewarded here for XHX. Keeping his big minions separated for exactly this sort of eventuality, meaning that one of them is still functioning. Oh, and now he's going to be able to make everything huge. Here we go. Wild Blessing. Giving everything +2/+2. You're going to learn Chinese translations from this if you watch a lot of these videos. I just find them too attractive sounding. Just deciding if he wants to go for another round of spells or Moonfire, or whether to do less damage. Only by 1. Keep back these spells for yet another round should XC not be able to get rid of both big minions. And this looks pretty fatal. Frost Nova's there, but the Doomsayer's gone. Nothing doing here other than freeze and hope. There's Reno, there's Puzzle Box. Those 2 cards seem pretty important about now. Any reason to play the Overflow? Well, a reason might be to play a second buff, but there's only 1 in the deck, so that makes no sense. Might also be worth looking for Soul of the Forest. You do have to pay the price of healing your opponent for 5, but does that matter? If this board lives, do you always do 12 damage when it gets to attack? I think the answer is yes. I think you play the Overflow, go looking for a Soul of the Forest. Gives you so much protection against accidents here. So XHX is going to be considered player. Just checking himself, which I like to see newer players do. I think when you're newer to the scene, sometimes you can just fall into the trap of rushing way too much. Now he's got to decide whether he wants to buff all these or whether he wants to save that buff, but what are you saving it for? Just another spell. Yep, hitting in makes sense to me. Why not take a point of damage off it? And this would be huge for XHX, I feel. Just looking at his body language and the amount of nerves going on there. It's his first time on the big stage. I think he's had a top 32 at Masters Tour Seoul. But his first real time in front of a large number of viewers, representing a team, etc. And showing yourself early on that you can win a game of Hearthstone. Ridiculous though that might sound, is actually a massive deal. That should help him to settle down just a little bit more now. And now he has to face the Priest. And again, he has 1 Soul of the Forest, which is kind of a defining factor for me in this matchup. Again, 2 is good, none is bad, 1 is let's play Hearthstone. So let's play some Hearthstone. You don't mind, obviously you want to get Fungal Fortunes, or Fungal Treasure, apparently, is the name of the card. But the Overgrowth is the big deal. Get yourself ramping up, get yourself going. The Priest isn't going to exert any pressure on you early. Okay, the longer it goes, the more of your stuff it steals, the more it can definitely blow your things up, but just getting through your deck here nicely and comfortably, get a load of mana, and off you go is nice work against the Priest. Do have to consider now if he wants to play this Glowfly Swarm next time. I'll be interested to see how he goes about it. If you play it and they play Breath of the Infinite, you have just walked straight onto one. And again, he seemed absolutely sure he didn't want to go for it. Just forcing himself to slow down, and I think this is a very professional attitude. I like VK. I think they've got all their ducks in a row. Presumably, Lion having a big input into how the team works, I would imagine, with all her experience now. Recently, of course, getting another top 8 as well to go along with her World Championship. Always nice when that happens. Pavel had a similar experience. You win the World Championship. It's just nice to get some other results to back up the performance, and Lion has done a fantastic job of that. But yeah, this is a young team, and I think they're going to be a force in this tournament. It's going to be interesting to watch them. So this time he actually changes his mind and does go with the Glowfly Swarm. He's going to walk onto the first breath, and I want to see what his plan is should that happen. It's quite a likely outcome that you get breathed. And I'm wondering if instead of deciding to ramp to victory, ramp to glory, he decided that actually with this hand, he's just going to play Swarm, then play another one. And if you've got 2 breaths, well, you're going to beat me. Certainly an attitude I can understand. In similar situations with old school decks, I've had this discussion, and it's not usually the prevailing opinion. But also with his hand, he doesn't have Mount Seller, he doesn't have Kael'thas. And so maybe he feels that he's just giving the priest too much time to get the stuff, should he not go for it. And I'm very interested to see what the plan is now. You've tested the water, and the water is warm. What do you do? With Overflow, there's nothing wrong here with just, going back to plan B. Ramping into the Overflow turn. And then trying to get some monsters on the board. The priest really only has Soul Mirror with which to punish a gigantic board. And there is only one, obviously, with it being legendary. So, alright, this is his plan, though. If you've got both of your breaths, you beat me. Well done. But both the breaths aren't there. And that's going to make this a very interesting game of Hearthstone. One of the reasons that this might feel a bit awkward, playing the Storms out, is there's no setup lethal. With no buffs in hand, this hasn't just got to stick, but it's actually... it's going to struggle to hang about. So Fungal Fortune into buff is what I would be going for here, I feel. Okay. I am very curious as to the game plan here. I mean, it's doing 10 damage, and it was likely to stick. And I am going to have to do the thing that I've been avoiding doing since the dawn of the expansion, and that is learn to tell the difference between the 2 9-mana priest spells. Because they look so similar. Normally I have lettering that I understand to bail me out. But I'm not going to have that. And of course, resurrecting your board and blowing up a board are different enough that I should probably know the difference. They're only diametrically opposed, no big deal. Okay, so challenging the board the old-fashioned way, and this feels like an absolutely critical turn. What can XHX generate with his hand of nothing? Gonna bog beam his way through to the face, I think, here. He's removing some of his 0-mana cards, though, so his Mount Seller is weakened. His Kael'thas is much weakened. But he does get the damage through to the face, and the board is protected. And Ysera is really hard for Priest to deal with as well. Dealt with it is. Ripped off the board. Slowly creeping through there, but also getting very close to just being dead. Not the dragon he's looking for. Look at those 8/8s and the 4/12s. They're the dragons you want. I think he's come this far that he's got to carry on. I want to use the word blundering through. That's really rude because I don't think he's blundered as such. He made a decision. He's stuck with his guns. But I think you've come this far. You want to Gift of the Wild and get some more damage in. He has a different plan to me. I mean, generating lots and lots of dragons from the portal is certainly a thing. And getting Soul of the Forest. That timing on the soundtrack, by the way, that's 2 times in a row we've got to that bit, and it's been perfectly timed. And yeah, XHX has managed to get himself into a position where he can generate more dragons. He's got 2 cycle cards. If these are removed, he can just do that again. It's an unusual approach. He wasn't worried about protecting the Soul of the Forest. He's more interested in getting the dragons to do the work for him. Right, board cleared again. Gets to cycle these. Set this up last turn nicely so no mana was wasted. Straight into Kel'Thas, and those spells do count as 2 spells cast this turn. So he will be able to get a cheap Gift of the Wild if it's the next spell he casts, but he's going to have to use the Overflow as his 0 mana card here. And this time, unlike against the Mage, healing your opponent for 5 is painful. Against the Mage, he knew that he was just going to get the damage through to win the game should he heal his opponent. But yeah, this one's a bit rougher. Obviously, Asura doing magic as it creates portals that are spells that create the dragons. It doesn't create the dragons themselves. Just portals the dragons can nip in and out of when they feel free, as is their want. And now saving the Ironbark for next turn. XC. Must be nice to have that victory under your belt early, especially against a player like Yu Yi. But it's all hands on deck again for him here. He's able to clear. Thanks to the reduction in Shadow Word Death. I'm glad that Pain and Death aren't both played, by the way, at the moment. Because they're going to look remarkably similar until I get used to it. Not much doing here. Time to play Power of the Wild as minions, I think. Maybe put a Soul of the Forest on them so you've got some stuff left over. Obviously, they can be Shadow Madness, which is no fun when you've got Soul of the Forest, but you've got to find a way to do damage. That takes him out of Shadow Madness range, making a 4/5. That's at least logical. Clears the hand out to draw some cards. This will be the end of his deck. I don't know how many portals are left, but I feel like it's 1. Mount Seller is in the house. It was 2 portals. And this has got to get it done. Well, XC's going to Murazond. What did we see? We saw some card draw. So he'll heal for 5 if he goes for that. But yeah, this seems much better. Okay, so back to 26. Nice shiny hand of things. And an opponent with only 1 play. As you can find 16 points worth of buff here, which I can't. Savage Roar counts as 6. Yeah, nothing exciting on here. I think you just play Mount Seller. Go all in and scoop up your cards when your opponent shows you AoE or a large amount of resistance on the other side. Is there a way though that you can play Soul of the Forest that gives you extra time? He feels the answer to that is no. I feel like he might be right. Here he is. This is all in board. It's a pretty nice looking board. With there only being 15 beasts in the Mount Seller pool, the outcomes don't get too diverse. Obviously Mooklas are good, and sometimes Russian Taunt is good. 1/1 hairs are bad, but if you're doing it 3 or 4 times, you tend to get a very sort of reliable amount of stats. But the Murazond casting the Overflow last turn, getting into this Galakrond, removing everything that XHX has got, and it's going to be 1 game apiece. And we're going to get to see some more Priest action. If you ever wonder who casters cheer for, we do have our favourites. We try and keep it to ourselves most of the time. But I think most casters will admit in a last hero standing tournament, they want the Priest to lose unless it's game 5 of the match. Not even because of the length of it, it's just play a thing, kill a thing, right? And the length. Okay, it's the length. I can't make a good reason other than the length. And even then, from time to time, Priest Mirrors can be enjoyable to cast, but you don't want 6 or 7 of them in a week. So yeah, if you ever wondered who casters want to win, it's the person who's not playing Priest in the current meta, maybe Control Warrior in the old days. We're horrible people, really. Okay, so the rogue is obviously a secret rogue of some variety. Secret Galakrond rogue of some variety. Look at me putting the clues together, like a grizzled veteran. Altruist in rogue has just got to be a good card. Yes, XHX. You're looking at the camera asking, is this a good card? Yes. Yes, it is. You're going to have loads and loads of 1-mana Malakis later, and you're just going to splat the Priest by doing 1,000,000 damage in 1 turn. That's what's going to happen. Planning out the rest of the game, however, seems a little bit awkward. I think this is correct. You've got Hanar into Miscreant, neither of which are activatable. So you're hoping to draw into a secret, I think, here. If not, you don't really want to waste your Miscreant and your Hanar. Bamboozle, easy peasy. Get a Paladin secret, keep it in your hand, and then next turn play it into the Miscreant. Paladin secret costing 1, of course, so you're guaranteed to get one because they rotate. Whatever you pick, the other 3 classes that have secrets are available to you. So if you take the Paladin one here, you can next turn activate your Miscreant. It means you float a mana this turn, but really, who cares? I think that's Eye for an Eye? Maybe not. Maybe it's time to get a list of the Paladin pictures on the screen for myself. It is Eye for an Eye, okay. Just trust yourself, Loenda. Meanwhile, XC is gathering a whole caboodle of different tools to work with. But with the picking of Togwaggle and now the creation of some lackeys, XHX's hand is getting pretty good pretty fast. This could go a long way, by the way. There's a lot of value in this matchup. Neither side really able to deliver knockout blows early most of the time, unless the rogue does something with an Edwin. And that's a disaster, by the way, for XC. He's going to have hand issues because of the mummy. You can never play that card. Talked about this earlier. If you play that card, you lose the game. A huge percentage of the time. Turns out that reducing your opponent's hand by 7 mana is just deadly. So that's going to clutter up his hand and mean that he's not going to be able to hold stuff as long as he wants. And in a value game, that is going to be problematic. There's actually not a card he can throw here. Alright. Hold tight because crazy things can happen here. For instance, XHX, yeah, and he goes straight into the thinking position. He could, for instance, play a lackey and Togwaggle right now on turn 5. He can also play Altruist and go through 3 cards on the right hand side of his hand. But I don't think he'll mind leaving this up. Just do the Togwaggle thing. Try not to take care of the 5-4. You don't care. Leave it there a turn. Have reduced cards again next turn. Yeah, he's going to freeze it. Okay. Ah. This makes me so happy. So XC, seeing the problem ahead was going to be this card stuck in my hand, in a value matchup has taken the decision to just lob it onto the board. But this outcome was not unlikely. Okay, Altruist is unlikely, but this outcome was his own fault. I mean, yeah, okay. XHX has rolled well here. But if you never played that mummy when your opponent has 3 or more cards, you would almost never make a mistake. It's just not something you want to do. And now the Blackjack Stunner, after the end of the turn, or gets to the end of the turn, he can put the mummy back into the hand, force it to be cluttering up XC's hand for even longer, and tempt him to play it again. This makes me happy, and I really hope that XHX wins this particular game of Hearthstone. Nothing to do with the priest conversation we had earlier, because that's what conversation is, right? One person talking down a microphone. But it just makes me happy to see this punish. It shows a little bit of a lack of vision, and yes, I'm going to rag on it because this is something that you do once, or happens against you once, and you never want to see it again. The game is not over though. Rogue is going to have to get through a collection of Bone Drakes and Murazons. And Murazon can get nasty after you play the Wand. So it's another reason really why you don't want to give your opponent a chance to have an early Togwaggle, because you want to Murazon after they Wand and basically sort of use your opponent's Wand. Things are now happening with such speed, that's not going to be possible. Because XHX is going to Wand next turn. Yeah, XC gives it up, and that's almost a shame, Concy. Like, what were you doing, young man? But it is only one game of Hearthstone. Everybody does make mistakes from time to time. And I am so glad that happened, because I was talking earlier about how you never play it, and it's very hard to visualise until you see it. Obviously, it looks obvious when you see it. But the first time you see it, it's like, okay, that's much worse than I thought. And I'm so glad that happened. Maybe I'm just a horrible person, I like to see horrible things happen, but that has amused me intensely. Alright, Rogue versus Rogue. There's 2 Eviscerates and a Togwaggle, so it's at least reasonably normal over there. But it's not that normal. Yeah, it is. It's normal. Oh, what do you want? Do you want all your 2-drops? And something I hadn't realised actually in the previous game is that this is Highlander. There was probably a clue that I missed at some point, but XHX is playing Highlander. So he curved out pretty much perfectly with this. Just having a quick look. Yeah, it's the Highlander. And he just went straight through. When he played the Hanar, then drew the secret. Good for him. Excuse me, I chuckle to myself looking through some of the name translations. Spy Girl being one of my favourite cards. That's almost exactly what I would just call cards anyway, most of the time. When I forget the names, it's just something girl or something man or whatever. Evolve Lackey being one of my favourite cards. Yeah, that sort of thing. Giving away all the tips of the trade here. And I'm sure over 9 weeks of this, I'll give away many more. So, if you want to hear all those, then don't forget to smash that bell, subscribe to YouTube, and get notifications when these videos are uploaded. It helps us a lot to be able to show the people who let us do these things that people are watching and people care. And then they'll allow us to do more things like this. Meanwhile, back on the board, the tempo battle is raging on. XC has managed to get a little bit of control of the board. Given there's a backstab and a Vis, a Togwaggle and a Lackey in his hand, that's a pretty good situation. But as always, with Rogue Mirrors, you find the person who is currently behind is also the one that has a handful of goodies, which means that things can take a lot of back and forth each and every turn. One of the plays we've seen a lot of that worked very well for Trunks earlier in the day is Kobold Lackey Shadow Step in these sort of situations, just to get that tempo on your side. It feels like you're wasting potential better uses. But then the more you look at it, the more it's like, well, actually, that's fine. But he's going to go with, my 1 attack minions are challenging your 1 health minion. So I'm comfortable with this. The upside of which being, obviously, you do manage to hold on to your Shadow Step in a deck that has a lot of good stuff going for it. Shadow Stepping and Alexstrasza, for instance. Gotta be tempted. But this was something I wasn't sure about when Trunks did it earlier in the day, when he was Shadow Stepping those kobolds for immediate gain, and it worked out very well for him and made me feel a bit silly for not doing it. So interesting to see in this similar looking situation now, but with a lot more value available, whether XHX doing the opposite can also be correct. And I think it probably is looking into what's coming up. Coin Alex into Shadow Step, play another Alex. Unless things go horribly wrong, that's a lot of value. But he does now have to dodge this. This will interfere with his plans. Wand is very powerful indeed. Alright, he's going to have a look. See what's in the Alexstrasza box. And it needs to be good because he's filled his opponent's hand right up. And there's a flick. That could be a massive deal. Big ol' Whelp's a good one. I think any naught cost dragon that does something else from Alex, outside of the times where you need a Deathwing immediately, which is sometimes the case, A 5/5 and draw a card, and again this other one which name eludes me, the 5/6 Death Rattle Maker 3/4. They're the sort of cards you want from Alex. The reason being that it's just a huge amount of tempo and value, and combining those two things is often good. What did you draw from your 3 0-mana spells? Well, 3 cheap spells is usually not the answer you want, or 3 cheap cards is not the answer you normally want to have to give. And this is going to allow XHX to have a shot at just winning the game. It's going to be able to do a lot of damage, going to be able to develop a lot of stuff onto board. That Shadowstep Seermat's going to be able to wreak havoc. And it's all XC can do to try and remove a minion. We'll be able to do that, obviously, rushing in something. He's making sure he gets all the other stuff out. With the rope burning like this, I'd have liked to see him get the removal in first and then do the subsidiary stuff afterwards. But getting the poison and killing the 8/8 is actually working out well for him. He did get all the actions in, so my fears were unfounded. And look how that's changed the game. And now it's XHX, who was in such a great position looking at going into his last turn, as so often is the case with Rogue Mirrors, suddenly having to do a lot of work. So 6 things need killing, and they're all small enough that you will kill them if you have things. So Seermat can kill 2 things, your weapon can kill 1, your minion already on board can kill 1. That's 4. You're on 28. To me, that means you can afford to not worry too much about the other couple of minions and actually just go about your normal progressions. And that's what XHX has concluded as well. Let's just go about my normal development. These minions aren't too terrifying, and that's going to allow me to get more ways to deal with this. This board is not the killer board. Yep. Something along these lines works nicely for me. So there's 2 choices here. You can use your flick to not really achieve much. Remove a minion, kill another minion with your face, and then let your board do some damage. Or you can go for the Bamboozle Shield of Galakond play. One of the advantages of that is now you've drawn a Blackjack Stunner, you can put this irritating 5/6 back in your opponent's hand and make them pay for it. It's suddenly not such a good card when it doesn't cost 0. Got to work the whole turn out if he's going to do that. Locals playing Devoted Maniac means that he wouldn't have the mana available to do the play I was looking at. But I like having Shield of Galakond and Bamboozle up. It means I just cannot safely trade in. They've got to find ways from hands to get rid of it. Lovely. Yep, he's seeing the same line I'm seeing. And now XHX can't afford to leave this board up. But the problem is, Bamboozle says you don't want to trade either. He's going to need a way from hands to deal with it. His weapon works. His weapon will kill whatever gets bamboozlified into, but that could be an 8 attack minion. You might not really want to take 8. But if you don't take 8, I mean, you might not take 8, you might take a lot less as well. It doesn't have to high roll, but if you don't take that, you're risking your whole board. And you'd really like your Seermat to get in there and start, digging around doing some work. So does he want yellow, purple, red or blue Siamat things? He wants the yellows and the blues. So Divine Shield and Rush. One thing's for sure, my Chinese will be a lot better in 9 weeks' time. Well, another thing's for sure is it couldn't be much worse, so yeah. Okay, a reasonable outcome there. Did he get all the attacks he wanted in? There's a lot of weird stuff going in here. Looks like he got everything in. Both players going low on health now, so the next person to get any sort of board going into the start of their turn is going to win. And this could be pretty close now. I think you want to buff the Shiv, see what it turns into. The Shiv? The Flick. See what 7 mana minion you get and then work out your turn from there. You don't have lethal, you're facing down quite a lot of damage. You can't play the Lackey you get from the Maniac anyway. You do have the option to bounce back, flick and kill off the Mana Saber, I guess. Yeah, maybe you want to do that instead. And leave your opponent with just nothing to do. This does represent the end of XC's decent sized minions. So he either needs a good top deck or this lot needs to get it done. Nice pickup for XHX. Allows him to deal with most of the board pretty convincingly. Seems to have the better hand, but he has been behind on board for a few turns now. The power of being on board first. So here's dragon hunting. And that looks like a good hunt. That should help him clear the board entirely. And 4/10s are hard to shift, as well as the fact they kill 2 minions, along with your Vendetta making that 3, which is how many your opponent has. 4/10s, if they're not bounced, are just tough things to get rid of. They kill most things and they trade into a lot of stuff. Going for Alex though. With healing in mind? I don't know about that. Yeah, I'm not comfortable with this. I'd rather have a 4/10 on the board. And my opponent have no minions. And me not have to heal my opponent to play my 8/8. And use my whole turn. I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. But the Alex, to me, looks like it will never get played in this game. Okay, you've got 2 problems now. The Phoenix is annoying because you have to get rid of the leftover Phoenix to stop it respawning. Alright. Well, Flick will help. And the other part of where I was going with that was, and you have to deal with Edwin or you lose the Hearthstone game. But even so, this dual front looks a little bit tricky. Play the Alex, that'll help you. So Galakon on the way of staying alive. It's a level 2 Galakon. He's going to draw 2 cards at 0. Does that help? Not really. Stays alive. Maybe it's okay. I'm not feeling how this is turning out though. With XE down to 1 card, XHX only needs to have 1 good turn, and maybe this is it. Maybe this is enough. right on the edge of winning this. And a Galakrond for XC. XHX readjusting his seat. He thought he had this. Still needs to get good cards from us, but 4 cards. How many Corruptors would you like? Yeah, and one way or another, this is either lethal, which I think it is. Yeah, it's lethal with the extra 2, right? Or is it 1 off? I think it's lethal. Plenty of ways to get rid of the blockers. And XC with a Galakrond pickup takes it down. And Alexstrasza is still in hand. 2-2, it's our first 2-2 match here in day 2. And it is going to be the Rogue for XC in this last hero standing. And it's got to get it done against Warrior, which is not ideal at all. In related news, this is the one matchup I can't seem to get the percentages to come out correctly on. I know what's favoured. I know why it's favoured. I know how it's favoured. The Warrior is a big favourite in this matchup. For some reason, when I play the Warrior in this exact matchup, no other Warrior matchups, just this one, the wheels fall off every time. Tell you something else as well. If you're XC, you don't play that 3 cost mummy. I think he may have learned his lesson on that one. Massive Edwin is a way to beat the Warrior. This is the thing that makes me cry when it happens. They make like a 12-12. You don't play Execute's main because that's not what your deck does. And you spend 2 or 3 turns killing the Edwin. You probably don't die from it, but you use all your resources and then you die to whatever comes next. And this giant Edwin should just be enough. So it's all hands on deck now. Everything has to go into the Edwin. Nothing wrong with face tanking this, but you need to decide which weapon you're going to face tank it with. You can then finish the Edwin off next turn with the Korkon Elite. Do you want a Lackey or do you want the Skipper that you normally want? Skipper would allow you to play your Brute much more easily, so you probably play Anchor. You also don't know that XC has once again rolled Stupid Mummy. So you think he actually has a good Reborn minion in hand. So XXX taking the risk that this 3-2 will still be there next turn. Which it might not be. We can see it will be though. That's going to work out nicely for him. Yeah, the thing here by putting 9 to face is in most scenarios your opponent has to put their own face into the Edwin and you give them 18. It's not just the 9, it's the backup 9 that the face tank often will have to take. So by going face here, you force 18 damage, and suddenly when they're down to 11 with no time to armor up every turn, Rogue can find ways to sneak 11 through. And he's traded there, so let's see what happens. The pickup of the Inner Fire, the Inner Rage, sorry, means that now he doesn't have to tank any damage. And that's just going to give him so much time. I don't know if he is playing the green skin or if he's not, but either way, Risky Skipper is very likely from this Anchor to face. Are there any other ways of clearing this up? You don't like to waste the Korkon combo, maybe you keep back the Inner Rage, but because XC didn't go face, this is a much more viable option. Now you get to keep the inner rage, and that's a big deal. Because then your Grom can do 12 at the end, and such like. See exactly what his build is. Is that around anywhere? Just give me a moment. Oh, so there is no Grom in this deck. He's playing the double Korkorn version, which was fairly common back when this match took place. Time to get your Brute down. Risky Skipper into Air Bandits. I mean, that works for me. Playing it a bit slower though. He's going to be able to do quite a lot with his hand, and this is the problem with the Edwin trade. The Rogue now doing 19 is so difficult. Doing 10, you can see how that could come about. Doing 19 means he's got to win the board against an Ankar that's gone off twice, which means that Risky Skipper is actually certain because there is no green skin in this deck. So you know there's a Risky Skipper. Actually, you don't know because you don't know that the Sky Captains were in the hand. But yeah, you've got a good feeling there's a Risky Skipper. 5 times out of 6 as far as you're concerned. And your Eviscerates and your Kobold Lackeys now have to be used for board control, so it's even more damage that won't go to face. Don't play the Mummy. Don't do it. You've done it once, you saw what happened. You do not want to do it again. Straight up, no fun when you play that Mummy. And we can see, look, like, so I'm joking about it. Look at the other side of this. Look how this works out if he plays the Mummy. 0 mana Risky Skipper into 0 mana Sky Captain. Into 3 mana, get yourself another spell. Into the spell being cheaper. Into, don't forget the Mercenaries is unnerved. That's another 2 mana. You can just about dump the hand. You probably can if you calculate it correctly. Dump the hand. We're going to get to find out. We're going to get to see. Can XHX punish XC twice for the same thing on the same day? Or am I just talking a load of bump? Yeah. This Brute is going to cost 0. Oh, he gets... Okay, because one of the minions dies. Kind of silly sometimes. Right, Sticky Finger against Rogue is bait. You sometimes feel that you can steal a Galakon weapon with it, but in general, you just play it as a minion. You may try and evolve it if you get the chance with a Lackey. So the obvious elephant in the room here as to why you can play the Mummy is it is a big minion that, you know, needs killing twice. But seriously, just look what's happening here. This is all because you let your opponent have everything for free. He's still going. You've just given him, like, basically a combo turn. So how did that work out? I'm going to go with I don't think it worked out as good as you would like for IG. But hey, XC played pretty well in the first game we saw, the first match we saw yesterday. So I don't want to be too incredulous about it, but that just feels like a mistake you don't make twice. Alright, XHX shows what you can do when your cards cost the normal amount. So So you're in such a strong position. I think working out what your opponent's likely good plays are, and Galakon's only level 1, so not really a problem. The big problem being Togwaggle over 2 turns. Well, that's quite slow. So setting up a 2-turn lethal will give your opponent no outs does seem to be very much on the agenda here. I'm going to get a Battle Rage to make sure. Yeah, and you see XE's face there. It's like, what? You've got all those cards? Maybe this is a good card after all. Maybe the people who said it was rubbish are wrong. So you're probably not dead next turn. There's the good news. The bad news is you're probably dead the turn after that. Togwaggle very much required. Get the wand. It's pretty much always wand these days. Alright, Rampage. We start counting. 10. So many cards. No need to panic. So there's a big question here as to whether you want to Rampage your Skipper. The reason being, you can then play Armor Smith and Bomb Girl, as I'm going to call her now, which will give you a massive board and some armor to make sure everything's safe. But also, if you're not careful, you do end up blowing up all your own things. So the other option is just to go this way, still get a massive board, not get quite as much value out of the bombs and the armor, and just trust that, look, this board's so big, I can keep my Rampage for next turn, put it on a better target, you're not going to kill me, even with a wand, and then I'm going to finish you off next turn. And XC on 12 health now is massively on the defensive, has to clear up as much of this as he can, definitely has to clear up the 2 6 attack minions, which he can obviously do with the Faceless Corruptor. But even then, he's facing down 6 that he can see, and a warrior with 7 cards in hand. I don't care who you are, that's not where you want to be. Bamboozle and Bounce just doesn't really seem to cut it. You can, I guess, taunt up, but you're not taunting up anything big enough to scare the warrior. Okay. That's where he's ended up. I do prefer the taunt out of the options currently available, yeah. This is all he had. I don't think it was great. But sometimes you do what you have to. So you're still looking just to clear the board here most of the time. Obviously you want to push through lethal if it exists. Get the most out of your challenger. Just me says he's going to play it. Gain a bit of armor in the process. A lot of the times here your opponent will have a 3-4 or something along those lines, so this is a good way to test for Bamboozle. You'll almost always get it down to 1 or 2 health at worst, which means you can trade into it. As it happens, you've got the good roll, so gains the armor, keeps the minion. Now you want to put the bomb into the 1-1. This gives you the maximum chance of hitting the minion and killing it. That's the worst result. If you're not going to kill it, you'd just rather that go face. So you just proceed, you put the 1-1 into it. You can feel sorry for yourself if you like, but whatever. And lethal is set up because of the Rampage in hand, I believe. Maybe it's one off. It's one off. XHX on the brink of getting a fantastic win to start off with here. would put VK off to a good 1-0 start as well, which will definitely not be what everybody else wants to see, like, from the outside. VK, home of Lion, as I mentioned at the start of the broadcast. And, you know, one of the teams that everyone's going to keep an eye on, one of the younger teams. And I suspect that they will be tough to catch if they get going. So it looks like a mana short of being able to lethal here, but... And of course he doesn't know the secret. I'm assuming there are 2 Bamboozles in XC's deck, and that's the problem here. But yeah, now you've got... I mean, play this how you want. I would personally create a bomb by trading into the 1-1. Yeah. And good luck with your 1 lackey and whatever you draw. Draws Eviscerate. That is not luck good enough. So Finley's not going to get it done either. And XC gives it up. You see the emotion there. XHX gets it done